Welcome, Praveen. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Since our topic is about the power and changing balances of power in Asia, I'm going to ask my question about the security architecture. When we compare to the traditional Asia-Pacific security architecture with the US-led Indo-Pacific security architecture, what are the main differences between two, and what kind of regional effects will appear when we try to replace traditional Asia-Pacific security architecture with relatively the new one, Indo-Pacific security architecture?
So you see, there are two security architectures which are coming up in the Asia Pacific region. One is backed by China and Russia, which means there are two major powers which are backing what is called the Asia Pacific security architecture. Now, the peculiarity of this architecture is that this is driven by prosperity. Prosperity, which means commerce trade, is in the vanguard of this architecture. And there is no country, especially in the developing world, less developed nations, who would say that they don't want prosperity. Now, on the other side, what we have is a security architecture which is led by the US military, which is the Indo-Pacific Command. And this name they got the Indo-Pacific Command in May 2018, as you know. So let's call it the Indo-Pacific Security Architecture. Now, this is primarily based on defense and security. And what it has under it are the US military forces in the region, their military allies, and the strategic partners like India. So this is very broadly the distinction of the two architectures. Now let us go and understand what it is about. Let us start with the China-led Asian Pacific security architecture. As I said, in the vanguard, what you have is prosperity, and how the prosperity they intend giving to these smaller countries is through the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, you see, Belt and Road Initiative, first of all, is a dynamic concept. When I say dynamic, that means it is evolving. So it started as a belt and a road, which basically meant that there was a land belt, and the land belt covered three continents of Asia, Europe, and Africa. And just one second, please, I think you stop this. I'm getting disturbed. So it covered that the belt covered, which was the land component, it covered Asia, Europe, and Africa. And then there was the maritime road, which covered the Western Pacific, Indian Ocean region until the Oceania, which is the 14 nations. Then it stretches to your Latin America. Then you have Silk Road on ice, which goes to the Arctic region. I'm just giving you this broad framework, but this is not all. After that, the digital Silk Road was introduced. In the State Council report in 2015, they spoke first of the digital Silk Road, and Xi Jinping, the General Secretary, in his first talk which he had on the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative Forum in 2017, he specifically mentioned the digital Silk Road. Now, digital Silk Road takes everything to a higher level. It is about hard and soft cyberspace connectivity. Now, here, let me explain what this means. What this means is the world is now entering into the third and the fourth industrial revolution. The third revolution is about digitization. That means we are talking about hardware, software, networks, internets, everything should be digital. And the fourth one takes you to what is called the artificial intelligence age, where you are talking of artificial intelligence and you are talking of data. Now, coming back to, as I said, there is this digital Silk Road. Now, as part of the digital Silk Road, what the Chinese are offering these smaller nations is that look, we will give you the digital package first. In that, what they are doing is they are providing 5G connectivity, Huawei connectivity. then they are laying the undersea cable, the submarine cables. For example, a very prominent sea cable is what is called Peace, which is Pakistan East African Cable Express, which basically connects Pakistan, the Gwadar or the Karachi port, straight to the East African nations, takes it on to Europe. So this is where the submarine cables are going. Now, beyond that, what they are offering is, what they are saying is, we'll take you to the industrial internet age, which is the fourth industrial revolution. See, all these things will happen slowly. This is where the Bedu is coming in. This is where, as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, they they are, building up these data centers in all these small countries. In Pakistan, they are building up some of them. In other words, they are taking, this is a subject by itself. In very brief, what I'm saying is that there is a dynamic roadmap. BRI is not only about hard connectivity that people think, that it is only about making infrastructure, ports or railways or highways. No, it's much more than that. So that is what they are offering. As part of that, yeah, please.
Can you say, now you say that the Belt Road also has the dynamic side. The Indo-Pacific is lack from the dynamic side or the social construction side.
So you see, in the Indo-Pacific, the issue is very simple.
Focused on militarily.
Yeah, it is only military because they had a TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, which the US Congress decided to leave in 2016. So they had an element of economic prosperity and they had the element of military. But they decided to leave that economic aside and they decided to focus only on the military. As far as the Trump administration is concerned, they were only focusing on that. And India is also now part of that. So the key point here, Lokman, is that for any country, prosperity and security cannot be divided. You cannot say that Malaysia will get prosperity from the Chinese. Chinese will help us with their Belt and Road, but security we will get from the Americans. It does not work that way. So what the Chinese are offering is actually a package of prosperity and collective security. Collective security is both bilateral, let's say between China and Malaysia. Wherever their assets are, the PLA will be there, and collaborative in terms of SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where they have a couple of nations. So you see, these are those two models. Now, you as an analyst can yourself decide. There is a dynamic model which intends to take smaller countries to the next level of prosperity. And then you have a military model, which is only about defense and military. So which is likely to succeed? So there is a big difference in the two.